everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Words of Heart podcast. I am your host, Dion Sanchez, and joining me this evening in this episode is Lisa Jones. Thank you for joining me today, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Lisa, if you could share with my listeners a bit about yourself, that would be great.
Sure. I've had a little bit of an interesting journey through mental illness. Not myself personally, as much as I've walked others' journeys through it, kind of unwittingly and kind of by accident and kind of by choice, a little bit of everything. So, I grew up with a family member that suffered from mental illness. Back in those days, it was, you kind of just pushed it aside. Nobody kind of knew what to do. There was a stigma, we just kind of worked with it, let the person be as they were and avoided them. So that was back when I was growing up. Later on, got married, had 3 kids. My firstborn, my son, was always a little bit, something was always off when he was younger. He couldn't pay attention in school. I couldn't take him out of the house for the first 5 years. He was very defiant, didn't listen. He was hard to teach, things like that. And when he was 2nd grade, he was the type of kid who walked around the classroom, wouldn't pay attention, would get into fights with other kids, stuff like that. And 2nd grade, I took him to a neurologist to see what was going on how come he was so antisocial and not learning as quick as others. And found out at that point, his diagnosis was ADHD. And at that point, and oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, in the 2nd grade, and was given medication, which I deliberated over and didn't want him to go on, etc. But, after giving that a lot of thought back in the day and thinking of it as an illness and not just a mental illness, I allowed him to go on medication. And the day after he was taking medication for it, we were eating waffles and, had blueberries and strawberries, and he made a smiley face on the waffle. And he said that up until that age, in his 2nd grade at that point, he had never felt happy until that point. So that was kind of a vindication to put him on medication. The years went on, he struggled in school, kept going, he was always on medication, kept getting it increased because his tolerance for it and his need for it became more. So struggled within school, struggled a little bit making friends, but not as much, more with attention, more with behavior problems. So in about 12 years old, he had a incident in school where he told somebody that he was suicidal at 12 years old. So, and there was other incidents around that time where he definitely showed suicidal ideation at that point in time. So when the incident with a schoolmate happened, they told the principal, called, he was taken to psychiatric hospital. He was admitted, and at that point diagnosed with a mood disorder. And they didn't want to give him the diagnosis at that point of bipolar disorder. So he was given a mood disorder diagnosis. Walked that journey for a few years as well. Walked the school journey with that. Walked getting him 504 plans. Talking to teachers to give him more time on tests. He had violent tendencies as well. Getting the medication, the right dose, because the psychiatrist that he went to wouldn't really give him all the appropriate meds that he needed for someone who does have bipolar disorder and ADHD. And that took a few years to happen. He finally got on the right medication a few years later, after he had a violent episode occurred. And finally he went on the right medication and was able to control the rages that he had for so many years, an outburst. So my story really is just walking that journey with him, which was difficult, and difficult with hearing the teachers who, it was hard for them to explain to them, this kid needs more attention, or he needs more time for tests, or his homework may not be done. I had a hard time fighting for him to get a 504 plan, not even to put him in an IEP or to get him in a special education. He did not have a learning disability. They wouldn't give it to him. They thought that someone with bipolar disorder and ADHD didn't need one. I had the principal of his high school come over to me and say, your son is just lazy and you might as well just pull him out now. He won't amount to anything. P.S. My son graduated high school. My son went to a semester of college already, and he's getting ready to graduate from technical school and go back to college. So what I've learned through all these years and all the stigma, and seeing my child, deal with psychiatrists and psychiatric and suicidal ideation and stigma and violence, and it has just shown me how far we've come and how far we've yet to go. As he is growing into, he's 19 years old now, and he knows he needs to take his medication. He knows what people he has to explain to people, explain to potential partners, dates, when he talks about what date do you tell somebody I have bipolar disorder, and I need to take medication, and I may go into, periods where I'm not as well as other periods. I have problems maintaining employment at times. It's such a difficult journey to watch, and to watch others react to them. Subsequent to that, I actually met somebody. His father and I became separated because of him. His father thought there was nothing wrong with him. He said, this kid just needs, he needs some punishment. I said, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. And I chose my son over my marriage, and stayed, and took care of him through it. Subsequently, I met a man. We were hit it off, etc. And I found out a few dates or into it that he also had bipolar disorder 1. My son is bipolar disorder 2. We've been together 3 years, and I learned that whole journey of bipolar disorder 1, which is different than 2, with the manic episodes, etc. And also brought him to a place of recovery. He's also med compliant, where he was also sporadic. He goes to therapy. I mean, they're both in control, but it has been a long journey to get both where they need to be with that. Between both of them have been hospitalized. There has been, the arrests, there has been violence, there has been ups and downs and depression and months in bed with, and just a lot of difficulty. And I've walked this whole journey with my son, and I walked 3 years of a journey with this man, and coming out the other side. And I'm never saying it's done. And mental illness is not done. Mental illness is maintained and controlled and managed. But to see this journey with them has been life-changing for me as well. Because of my son, after he was in the psych ward, and I saw how they were treated, and I saw how, you can't see your family, there's such limited visits, how, the strings are taken out of their pants because they're afraid that they're going to commit suicide while in there. How these centers, where some folks that work there are very dedicated, a lot of them don't really care. I became outraged at that, and the treatment of my son like he was a criminal when he was ill. And at that point in time, I went around and I wanted to join boards. I wanted to do anything for outreach and advocacy. And I joined a board, local board in New Jersey, for an agency that deals with persistent and persistently mentally ill people. And I joined that one, subsequent joined another one, and got very involved in advocacy within the state, at the state level in New Jersey. And just because what I see, and I really do not think we're where we need to be. by any stretch. But I mean, I see us coming a little further, but really not there yet at all. And I'm kind of just, I'm trying to make changes. I'm trying to get the word out. I'm trying to break stigma. I'm trying to teach, because we have such a ways to go.
Absolutely. And I truly admire you for advocating for your son and your is it spouse, boyfriend, I presume?
He's my significant other at this point.
Right. So. And I don't know if you get this at all. I didn't expect there to be a crazy movie on in the background as I'm trying to make a point, but that's life. For someone such as myself, I can relate to your son's story a bit. Just give you a little insight into me, from the child perspective. For the first 2 years of my life, I couldn't hear her talk. So I had a mountain of health issues and deficiencies, one of them being HD as well. So I had trouble focusing. My motor skills, my cognitive development, all were slow or non-existent. I mean, they were existent after a certain point because, hey, I'm talking. But right. My father was really iffy about putting me on medication as well. The doctors highly recommended it. Like, it will help her stay calm and still. He took a different response than you did. He was adamant about me not taking it. Like, no, I don't want to dope her up with medication. So it was, as a result, it was a real struggle for him, and a personal internal struggle for me, because I had trouble socializing and fitting in because I felt so different already. I was in special classes, and my dad even tried to advocate, like, my daughter doesn't need to be in these special classes. Like, if you put her in a normal class, she'll adjust just fine. And I did therapy and physical therapy, and my dad went through a real brunt of it, trying to prove to people that I am smart and that I'm unique. Even though it takes me a little longer to learn things, I am just as smart. Even the doctors told him, like, hey, your daughter's like retarded, or learning retarded, or training retarded. I think there's a specific retarded version of what they said to him, which was absolutely ridiculous. But a doctor isn't really paid to be emotional. They're paid to be like non-biased and just realistic. So he witnessed a good deal of struggle, as you did as a parent, trying to advocate for your child and see the value in your child. So I can understand your son feeling different and quite possibly isolated. I didn't have any violent tendencies, but I did question my existence. So I did have suicidal thoughts as well. So I completely understand the whole being different and being picked on for being different, quite frankly. And I truly commend you for sticking it out and picking your son over your partner or husband at the time, I believe, as you just now mentioned, because we are, speaking from my own personal experience with it, we are unique and we are special, and there's nothing wrong with us. Even though the world may see something as something wrong, we are not. And my internet's acting up, so I hope you're still with me. The world wants to interrupt this awesome conversation, apparently. So I am just gonna keep talking, and hopefully you're back. Yay. What I was trying to say, you're still frozen. Okay, you're back. What I was trying to say was similar to what you just said about your son and doing well in his academics. The same case happened for me as well. Those doctors thought I was retarded. I ended up graduating high school with like a 3.0 GPA, and I could even graduated early and everything. So overcoming your issues and hindrances isn't easy. But I can really relate to you and your son because it's the same dynamic with me and my father. And hopefully my internet is still okay. I can understand the dynamic between you and your son as I was trying to state, because same with me and my father. And as a matter of fact, he still tries to advocate for me, even though I'm a grown adult at this point. But because he wants me to succeed, and I'm sure you want the same for your son as well. So
absolutely. I'm just thinking of a moment when I was in the high school and they didn't believe that bipolar affected learning. So it took a psychologist, the district psychologist, who came in the room and he described to them what bipolar disorder is, how it affects learning, how it affects functioning in the classroom. They didn't even know that. And these are teachers that are working with kids and administrators that are working with the kids. How do you not know? It was just, I didn't know. And then once he explained it to them and walked around the room explaining it, they said, he's approved. Give him more time for tests. Give him this, give him that. It's unbelievable. I mean, when I do my advocacy for this non-for-profit, we do mental health first aid training teachers, training anybody that works in the school, because the kids don't talk to the teachers. They'll talk to the crossing guard. They'll talk to the lunch ladies. They talk to the security guards, and that people that anybody who will talk to the kids and can get, maybe they can talk to somebody. But it's just amazing to me that how much ignorance there is about mental health.
absolutely.
So stories like that. I mean, I just.
Absolutely. And I really wish my internet would be stable, but I think we're pushing through just like in life. But I couldn't agree more with you that mental health needs to be more of a topic of conversation. It shouldn't be undervalued or downsized to it being not a big deal when it's an absolutely big deal and traumatically affects every single person. And I couldn't be more grateful for the fact that I started this podcast in the midst of this pandemic season a year ago, which we're 2 years into this, and just discussing mental health and just being a real advocate. I consider myself to be a warrior for change through the power of my words, and this podcast is a huge component of that. And I'm just very grateful to have conversations such as this to help others struggling with mental health, to remind them of the fact that they are never alone in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's people out there. There are so many support groups on Facebook, and you can go to different not-for-profits in your community. There are people who get it. You just have to find them, but they're out there, definitely out there, and they do want to help and they do understand. It's just difficult, and it is definitely an isolation, especially for the folks who struggle.
Absolutely. So considering you're such an advocate for mental health, how have you tried to advocate during this hectic season known as the pandemic?
Well, that's a great question. It definitely affected both my son and my significant other immensely, the pandemic, especially when it initially started. They both went into a downward spiral during the beginning of the pandemic. Loss of activities they enjoyed, just kind of withdrawing, going into my significant other going into in and out of depression and mania. It was very difficult. It was difficult for everybody, but especially difficult for somebody who has more trouble managing their emotions, their mood. It was very difficult initially, and it took a good 6 months to kind of even bring them both to a better place of understanding and stability and a new normal. Because I do definitely notice, and I'm kind of a person who knows a lot about bipolar disorder. In order to be stable, you really need to have routine in sleep, routine in eating, routine in taking your medication, routine on going to the doctors and therapy. Routine is critical in stabilizing. And during that pandemic, there was no routine. The routine was, we didn't know what tomorrow brought.
Right.
So it became very hard for most people, and especially hard for those who struggle with mental illness. Extremely difficult. Plus losing touch with their doctors, and it was just very, very hard for them. So it's a great question, but yes, definitely more difficult.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get to the icebreaker segment while my internet is still stable. I'm enjoying this conversation because it needs to be discussed more, and hopefully this reaches more people in the mental health community, or just people who have typical problems in general. Again, mental health affects everyone. It's not just one specific set of people or genre or gender. It affects everyone. So
absolutely.
So I'll start with the icebreaker question. I think you'll be good at it. If you had to come up with a title or chapter, it could be a couple chapters or just one single chapter for where your life is at right now with everything going on, what would it be?
Transition.
Transition.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason as to why would you pick transition? I'm curious.
At this point, I think in my life personally, I think I'm going from to my family and what they've gone through and what I have seen and been through. We're going into a different place. We're coming out of that period of trying to understand everything, trying to right a lot of wrongs that happened, and we're going into a different period of time. And I think that's not only personally for me, I think it's society as well at this point. We're just moving into myself personally, my family personally, but society is moving into a new normal.
Absolutely. With everything going on, I can understand the world transitioning, and hopefully my internet transitions to being stable because it's annoying. Anyhow, the chapter or title for where my life is at right now, I kind of already gave it away, but it's a good little title, and I consider it a mantra in a way, is to be a warrior for change. I mentioned all my health issues from really since the day I was born. So my life was just difficult automatically without a choice in the matter. But I've gone through quite a lot in my adulthood as well. When the pandemic started in 2020, the year we all want to hate, I got diagnosed with diabetes. So considering what I just
my son is diagnosed. Well, he's a type 1. Well, insulin dependent. He's insulin dependent.
I'm insulin dependent as well, and see, we were connected so well. But to be diagnosed with anything in this pandemic wasn't ideal. And considering what I just shared with you, my family was not thrilled with this news at all, because the fact that I had gone through so much, and I'm at a point in my life where things are relatively normal, not cuckoo. I'm doing good in school. I'm doing good with all the areas seem to be nicely knit into a little bow. And then I get this huge drastic change that is now a part of my whole life, as far as I know. Yes. So
it's very difficult. When my son was diagnosed a few years ago, it was traumatic. He said, I've got hit with so many things wrong with me, and now I have to take shots of insulin to eat. Yeah. And he went into a major funk after that. He said, I got everything slammed on me. He would relate completely to that. Now it's just part of what he is. And he just says, you know what? You don't want to be my friend, or you're embarrassed me to shoot insulin in the restaurant, then you shouldn't be my friend. This is who I am, and this is what I got dealt. And he's kind of come to terms with it. But I feel for you. I understand. Not that I live it, but I watched it, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
live that life. It really is.
Watching it's definitely difficult, I'm sure. My family just didn't like that I had to go through this, but I took it as, hey, I'm still alive. I'm not dying, because I was on the brink of death.
That's right.
When I came to the realization of being diagnosed. And this was all in the midst of this virus going on, unfortunately. But I took what happened to me as a blessing, and it really catapulted this mantra I just mentioned as being a warrior for change. God placed it on my heart. And if he hadn't placed it on my heart through my diagnosis, then we wouldn't be having this awesome conversation on my podcast. So it all played a wonderful factor into helping others. So that would be the chapter for my life, being a warrior for change. So
I think it's great. And my son also, he was in the ICU when he got diagnosed as well. He was on the verge of very, very bad. And it was touch and go with him as well. When he was diagnosed, he was, so I get it. A rough diagnosis to get as a young person, already struggling with other issues, and to get that diagnosis on top of it, and to know that this could be a lifetime of everything. All of this is a lifetime.
Yeah,
and it's rough.
It is absolutely rough. And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I got sick. I had just turned 24. I'm always super excited about my birthday, but I couldn't even be excited about it all that much. I mean, I had my brother in town, but I couldn't be excited for the holidays and everything that comes with being happy with your family during the holidays, because I was sick, and it was just absolutely horrible. And I was super depressed, and I even went back to that like suicide mentality when I was younger, which I freaked out when that happened. I absolutely freaked out. And my dad was trying to help and be there for me, and I just exploded on him because I was suffering so much. And then I had a freak out over the fact that I thought about suicide. I'm like, oh no, I haven't thought about this since I was 10. This is really bad. So it was absolutely horrible, but I'm still here. I'm still breathing enough so we can get on to the fun segment of this. Because I don't want to drown everybody out with this, but these topics are important, so they'll just have to live with that, because that's the whole purpose of my podcast. So on to the icebreaker game. I just have to get my notes out because it's a part of the game. Just gotta find it. Okay. So the game is called Song Association. You don't have to be an avid singer for this game to work. It's really just for laughs and giggles pretty much. But basically how it works is I give you a word, and you either have to sing it, say it, rap it. If you want to jokingly rap about it, feel free. Again, I accept everyone singing capabilities, non-existent or laughter existent. But pretty much I give you the word. It can either be in the title or in the lyrics. It has to be an actual song. You can't make it up. One of these days I might do a game where you can make up songs, but not today. Okay. The thing is, you only have 15 seconds from the second I give you the word to come up with the song title or it being in the lyrics. So if it's in the lyrics, you have a loophole.
Gotcha. Now, I only know older music, so I just want to warn you on that. 80s music, 90s music.
I feel like with the words here, you should be able to do just fine if you're doing 80s.
Okay.
All right, so let me find my here. All right. So the first word is heart.
Heart. Oh, that's easy. Tell It to My Heart. Isn't that a song?
Do you know who sings
I don't know. Sing it. What's that song? Roxette sings that, right?
I wish I could give you that. But
you can't give me. I think it's a name. Oh.
The thing is, you need like.
Well, that's I guess I think it's the title of it. It's like Tell It to My Heart. That's the title of it. Told you I know old songs.
I
Got to
know,
be
I
80s,
know,
90s.
no, I know. I'll give you that one because you did do it before the timer went off. So I'll give you that one, and I'll throw you the honor code.
Thank you.
Roxette is an actual band. I know
okay. You can look it up later.
So the next word,
and I did do it quickly, so it means
you did do it quickly. You did it slightly quicker than any other guess. I will give you that. So the next word is words.
Words. Song is called "No More Words" by Berlin, and that's the song because no more words. That's the name of it.
Okay.
You can look it up.
When you were as you were saying it, that's not the song title I thought you were gonna say. I'm gonna be honest, because some of the guests have either don't have a clue or went with the song "More Than Words" by the band Extreme.
Oh, interesting. I like both songs, but I like that other one better, so I went with that one. So there you got a new one.
I just have a new one. All right, so that's 2. I'm trusting you that these are songs.
But look them up. They're songs. Trust me, they're songs.
This one you should get. If you don't get it, I will be really, really sad this last one. Because I mean, even if you weren't born in any decade, you should know this song. It's just that.
Okay.
So the last word is faith.
Faith. George Michael, you gotta have faith. Is that the one?
Yes. All right. I'm trusting you that those other 2 ones were songs. I'm trusting you.
They are songs. Look them up.
We can talk about songs all day long.
Yeah.
Or make a book about songs, but unfortunately, we're at the end of this winding road of conversation. I also know Boyz II Men has a song called "End of the Road" also, but that's just my own little.
That's another one.
Anyhow, either road we're on, this is the road that we are at. So, do you have any social plugins for my audience before we wrap up here?
Sure. I have a blog, and that's mindingmentalillness.com, and be contacted on that as well.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining me, Lisa. This was a great conversation, and I truly connect with you more and your son and your story because it's so similar to me and my dad's journey with my own issues as well.
Okay, glad to hear it. It's great talking to you.
Awesome. So to all my listeners, thank you for joining us on this latest episode of the Words of Heart podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed this dancing or singing segment of this with the icebreaker, please don't hesitate to let me know on the following platforms. We are on Facebook at the Words of Heart podcast. We are also on YouTube under the same name. And of course, you can tune in wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, however you choose to listen to it. Please let me know, retweet, subscribe. If you could send it to the moon, let me know. I don't have contacts with NASA, but I'm pretty sure you guys could figure out a way to get this to the inner regions of the galaxy. Either way, stay healthy, stay safe. If you want to reach out to me on anything you're struggling with as well, please don't hesitate to do so. You can message me on Twitter at HeartWarrior24 and on Instagram at HeartWarrior25. So again, thank you for joining me on this latest episode. Again, I am your host, Dion Sanchez. Thank you for joining me, Lisa Jones. And to all of you, once again, stay healthy, stay safe. Know that you are important and that your life does matter. And until next time, bye.